All right, y'all, what is up? My name is Sid the Great, and this is my very first YouTube video, and I am here on this great day of Black History Month to talk about Judas and the Messiah. So, this movie came out on Friday, just watched it last night. I do want to say that this is my first and only time watching the film. I typically be a little bit more into things, like I give higher ratings the second time I see something. Like the first time I walk out and be like, that shit was trash. Then the second time I'll be like, you know what, they might have been hitting on something here. So yeah, said it to say this is my first time, so bear with me. First thing I wanted to talk about was casting. So I'd like to start first with Danial Kaluuya. I said I wasn't even gonna try to pronounce his last name, and I did anyway. If I fucked that up, I apologize. But I would just like to say, when they first said that he was cast to play Fred Hampton, I was definitely one of the people where I was like, it's a no for me. I was not happy at all about it. I was literally like, I feel like Nate Parker could have did a good job, but I also understand why Nate Parker isn't necessarily on the radar these days. I even thought about maybe a Kelvin Harrison Jr. could play this part. Particularly, I know that like there was a good amount of energy on Twitter and people were on Twitter talking about the idea that the American descendants of slaves, or the descendants of slaves, should be the people playing Black heroes. And I was one of those people, I was talking to my friends about it, and I was saying like, is there overrepresentation of African people playing African American parts? I remember hearing Samuel Jackson saying something about being able to pay African people less money to play African American roles. Not at all sure how true that was. Not sure if he said it, so let me say allegedly. I had heard that on the mean streets. And so I was like, maybe that has something to do with it. And then, for me personally, when I first heard people like getting upset about it, for me, my first introduction to this idea of African American people playing African Americans was with Cynthia Erivo, who got in a lot of trouble when her tweet resurfaced of her saying like something about a ghetto African American accent, or but she was playing Harriet Tubman, right? So people were like, see, and this is why we don't want you playing our roles. And so, mind you, I know it myself personally. When I hear somebody says something about the Black community, I'm looking like Yzma in Emperor's New Groove, like, what was said? Bitch, I thought I heard you, what? That is me. So I was looking at the tweet like, Say that to say, I wondered if there was an overrepresentation, because one other thing I thought about was Malcolm X, in one of the books I read about him, said, it brought up the idea that an African can get more respect in America than an African American could. So I was like, there may be something to this, right? Like, my question is, more than anything, is an African person, like if there is a disproportionate amount of African people playing African American roles and using their African privilege, is that the same thing as light-skinned people using their light-skinned privilege and it being, harmful and basically kind of off the backs of and off the discrimination against dark-skinned people? That's my question. So that was really what was all kind of swirling through my head, and I was like, yeah, but then on top of that, I also didn't feel like he looked like Fred Hampton, so that was another reason why I was like, I'm not happy about this. Like, I feel like I'm gonna see Daniel on the screen and not Fred Hampton, the character that he's playing. But then I had to realize that there have been people who were amazing at certain roles, such as Angela Bassett in What's Love Got to Do with It, right? Or Malcolm X, Denzel Washington, not necessarily looking like Malcolm X, but people really embodying those roles and doing a great job. So I was like, you know what? I can't necessarily hold it against him that he don't look exactly like Fred Hampton, because I know I love those films, and so that wouldn't be fair. To which I want to say, Daniel murdered that shit. I was like, you had to do that for me to come and be like, you did that. Because I was on the other side. Like, I was kind of like, I wasn't rooting for his team, you know what I'm saying? But I felt like he did, from the voice to the way he, was, you could say pronouncing or like using the accent, the way in which Fred Hampton's mannerisms, the way he spoke, like literally how he said words. I felt like Daniel Kaluuya really got in the character and did an amazing job. So can't hold it against him. Kudos to you, like Drake me, you did that. Also, I think Lakeith Stanfield is a great and solid actor. I think he gave a solid performance. I was very happy to see Dominic Fishback, who I was introduced to from the Power Project. As soon as I saw her, I was like, okay, let's see you. Because like I said, I've only seen her in one of the things. So I was like, come through and do the things. Now I will say, from a casting standpoint, she did look a little young to me. Standing next to Daniel, like they didn't look like they should have, like she kind of to me, standing next to Daniel as opposed to being a love interest in the film, she kind of looked like a little sister to me. But as far as her performance, again, I think she gave also a very solid performance in the movie. Like I said, very happy to see her. And in general, one thing I really liked about this film was that there were a whole bunch of new actors, new generation actors in this movie, right? I didn't see any Will Smiths, Denzel Washington, Jada Pinkett Smiths, Queen Latifah's, like people our parents, grew up watching and got older and continue to progress in age watching on TV. These were all new actors. So I was literally sitting there like, okay, little nigga. I literally was like, all right, okay, I see y'all up in here. Come on through and do the thing. So now for the movie itself. I give this movie, now again, first time viewing it, only seen it once, right? Like I said earlier, sometimes I'd like it better the second time, but I give this movie a solid 7. There were just times in the movie where I felt like it got a little boring. Like it got, and it's crazy because like I'll watch a movie sometimes and I'd be like, I can't quite put my finger on what it is about this I don't like, but I just felt like the energy in the film waned. And when I think about other biopics, right? I think about like the Muhammad Ali biopic. I think about Malcolm X, the biopic. I think about Ray. I think about What's Love Got to Do with It. I don't ever remember there being a moment in any of those movies where I was bored. So I wondered what it was about this film that I just felt like I was a little like, all right, so that's why for me, I give it a 7. Now I will say, for me, the best scene in the film, done from both like a compositional standpoint, from like, just in general, I just thought it was an amazing, the way they chose to shoot it, because of course with anything, there's many different artistic ways you could go about depicting this on the screen. And I felt like the scene where Fred Hampton gets murdered, where the other Black Panthers and Mark Clark gets murdered, where the other Black Panthers get shot and harmed, of course, I thought that was done very well. Like, even the whole like going up to the door and being like, oh, who is it? Boom! Like I was like, oh, and that's exactly how I imagined it was when I read the trial of Fred Hampton. I just thought it was done very well, from just like there was a shot of Fred Hampton like from above. You could tell like the camera was positioned over him, and just the entire way that the shot looked. It almost had like a blurriness to it to me, if I remember correctly. And I know that they were talking, the whole him being drugged thing, and the idea that you had police coming in, blowing bullets through walls, and he never even got up, right? Like, I just thought it was done very well. Because the other way I was thinking that they might do it was like when I think about like Cleo being killed on Set It Off, right? You have the music, and the music really pulls at your heartstrings. I realized with this scene they chose not to use any music, and I thought that was a very smart artistic choice, and I really enjoyed it. So definitely wanted to say shout out to the director and everybody, the cinematographer, everybody who was involved in making the scene where Fred Hampton is killed and the other Black Panthers are shot in the house, making that scene really come to life. Definitely hands down my favorite scene in the movie. I think they did a very good job also of displaying the ideology of Fred Hampton, of showing how charismatic of a leader he was, of showcasing, what things looked like after he was in jail for the Black Panther Party, the chapter in the Illinois area, and how, the amount of people coming in trying to join was waning without his presence, and his ability to unify. Like, that was, to me, what I felt like was a part of the greatest threat when it came to why they saw him as such a threat, was his ability to unify across races, right? Like the young lords who modeled themselves off the Black Panthers, the young patriots, and Fred Hampton being able to go into these different spaces and bring these different people like together, because we know like a lot of revolutionaries talk about the ability to keep us separated is what keeps us where we are, and that's why we have such a hard time getting equality for all these different people. So I love that they showcased that in the film. One thing I didn't kind of like that I had a feeling they were gonna put in there that really didn't do much for me was kind of like the love story between them. Now, like I said, I definitely want to watch this movie again and pay more attention to the energy that's happening between, you know, both Fred Hampton's character and if I'm not mistaken, I think her name is Deborah. I should look that up, but my phone is right here. If I jumped on the screen, I had to run and check this, make sure I got her name right. Yes, but I want to pay more attention in the second viewing of the film to the chemistry between the two actors who were, of course, you know, playing Fred Hampton and Deborah in the film, and pay more attention to the love story, because at the same time, I had a feeling they would include it, because I think I think it kind of makes the story more full, more round, to include, you know, these more humanistic parts of who Fred Hampton was. But I maybe that also was something about it that just kind of didn't, you know, do it for me. And not to say it was anything against the actors, it might have been more of a scripting thing or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what about that just didn't connect for me. But maybe I also know sometimes I be coming looking for the facts so heavy, like, all right, y'all gonna put this, that, because I read a lot of Black history, and so I've read, like I was telling you, like I said earlier, I've read the trial of Fred Hampton. And I also watched the documentary about Fred Hampton that I will put down in the link below for if y'all want to check it out, please do. And so I'm always kind of like fact checking, like, okay, did I get this, did I get that? And so sometimes the love story and the more humanistic parts of it kind of falls to the wayside, but I definitely understand why they include it, and I think it's good for us to understand that these people who were these amazing leaders, right, and these extraordinary human beings were also simply humans. You know, Fred Hampton was about to be a dad. He was a friend to people. He was a son. Like, so I love that they included that. And that was also another scene that I really enjoyed, the scene where he went and sat down with the Black Panther who had just got killed by the police as he was out, you know, shooting motherfuckers down. But I thought that was also a really good scene. I thought the actress in that scene also did a really, really good job. Sometimes I really like to pay attention to the smaller roles on the screen. Like, she was only in one scene, right? But I felt like she did a really good job in that role. So, and that's also, you know, the last thing I want to say is that I also thought this movie did a very good job with the historical parts, with like the truth telling, because I feel like Black history is so beautiful and it's so intricate and so dramatic, in a sense that it doesn't have to be changed to be a Hollywood blockbuster, to be a movie that will be entertaining, because the history in and of itself is just, it's so rich and it's so full. And so, like, there were definitely things like, for instance, the part of the scene where they go in and they kill Fred Hampton. Going back to the reason why it was one of my favorite scenes, I love the way they framed it. Like, I love that it was shot in the sense that Deborah was in the forefront, and you didn't necessarily see Fred Hampton get shot, but you hear the officers, you know, shoot him 2 times in the head, and then they say he's good and dead now. And that is historically accurate. It is in the book. So I love that they put that in there like that. Same thing with the informant, William O'Neill, him coming and showing up with the bomb saying, like, let's go blow up City Hall. Also accurate. Like, he really did try to, they had, and I'm pretty sure it was William O'Neill specifically that said it, but I remember reading in the book that there was an informant, like I said, pretty sure it was him, just don't want to say anything inaccurate, but who did show up on some, let's blow some shit up, like trying to get them to do things that were legit illegal. So that was also very true. The poison not the poison in the drink, but putting the stuff in the drink, and Fred Hampton never waking up. In the book it said that he literally raised his head and put it back down. Deborah shielding him with her body, also historically accurate. Panthers being shot in the legs, historically accurate. Them coming in and shooting like bullets, just bullets on bullets on bullets, and all of the bullets being, like, you know, shooting inward and only one coming outward, also accurate. And I also loved in the film, another thing I did love about it was the inclusion of the archival footage, right? Like, us seeing the real Huey P. Newton, us seeing the real Bobby Seale, especially because the characters weren't depicted in the film. So I loved that they included that archival footage. The movie, it had a lot of things in it that were factual, and I always look forward to that in a biopic. Like, I do understand that the biopic is not a documentary, but as I said earlier, our history is so rich and so amazing. I personally don't feel like, especially depending on the story that you're telling, like, if you're telling the stories of Black Panthers, if you're telling the story of Fred Hampton, the story is so rich and full, the real true story, that to me it doesn't need, I personally don't think it needs anything to kind of fluff it up and to make it more entertaining. Like, it's an amazing story in and of itself. Also, another thing too, like, the government literally sending fake notes to rivals of the Black Panthers to rev up more dissension. The use of the word neutralize, right? Like we hear Martin Sheen, who's playing J. Edgar Hoover's character, say neutralized in the movie, right? And if not him, one of the other FBI agents, like neutralized, that was a real word. We do see J. Edgar Hoover saying like the prevention of a Black Messiah. I had the opportunity to read the FBI files of Malcolm X, and that book has like, you know, legit transcribed FBI files, and that is legit the word for word language used in these FBI memorandums. And so I thought they did a really good job with that. Speaking of Martin Sheen, I knew I was forgetting something. Martin Sheen did that.
That bitch did that.
Like, I know Martin Sheen mostly from Grace and Frankie. And I saw his name come up in the opening credits, and I was like, oh, Martin Sheen is in this. Okay, cool. You know, I'm excited. And then say that to say he was so in character, and I don't know if he was wearing prosthetics or not. If y'all know, please let me know, because I might do more research and stuff like that into it to see, but I don't know if he gained weight and was wearing prosthetics or was wearing prosthetics, but I just literally was like, if I hadn't seen his name come across the screen, I wouldn't have known that was Martin Sheen. Like, he definitely had, for me, one of the better performances in the movie. And not to say that the other ones weren't, like, you know, great, but I just felt like he really embodied the role. Like, he plays a great J. Edgar Hoover, because we see J. Edgar Hoover depicted, of course, a lot in films, like, you know, in a lot, especially, you know, Black historical films, you know, COINTELPRO. But I feel like Martin Sheen might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite, actors to play J. Edgar Hoover so far. So shout out to Martin Sheen for being the shit, because he did that.
That bitch did that.
But yeah, like I said, I definitely give the movie a 7. I definitely want to watch it again and see if there's anything else I pick up on, if there's anything else that like sticks out to me, or if I end up coming back and saying actually it's an 8, it's a 9, because I did see that it got very good critic reviews, and I'm very happy for that. I also would like to say to the director, Shaka King, no matter what I say about any Black movie, particularly our historical Black stories, I am always thankful to Black storytellers who tell our Black stories. So shout out to Shaka King. Like I said, if for nothing else, shout out to you for the way you shot the scene where he gets murdered. Amazing job. Loved it, inspired by it. And I'm gonna continue to look out for your work if you just happen to be watching this. But yeah, and shout out to Ryan Coogler, who for whatever reason I always think he's directing, just to find out later that he actually is producing. But shout out to him for, again, continuing to produce and be a part of telling our Black stories. Definitely let me know what y'all think. If you like, bitch, you tripping, this movie was a 10, let me know. If you like, girl, you tripping, it was a 1, let me know. If you're like, I see what you're getting at, sis, let me know, because I love cinema. I want to talk about it. I want to learn from y'all. Hopefully y'all can learn from me. Happy whatever day of Black History Month you're watching this. I wish y'all well. Stay happy and stay safe during these crazy times. And I look forward to, you know, checking back in with y'all soon again when there's another great Black story, or story in general, that I feel like talking about. So take care, y'all.